All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great day and ready to submit your August GGC submission. We are flying through the summer, and yeah, we only have a few months left in this competition. I'm joined today by one of the partner brands, and the rep from Athena today is JJ, who is a advisor at Athena, does quite a few different things, and we'll touch on what you do with Athena, what Athena's seeing in the grower space, especially for home growers, why you guys wanted to get involved with the GGC, and see where we go from there. Sound good, JJ?
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's just start with a question I've been asking pretty much all the reps here, and it's how did you get into the cannabis industry? What kind of led you to it? What was interesting to you, or maybe you backdoored it in?
As a 14-year-old, right? I started smoking, and right away, was bit by the bug, and first I started blowing glass for a while, which led me to move up north at 18, and then I first year that medical marijuana became legal in California, so I was able to get my medical rec and started doing a bunch of outdoor in depths and eventually moved back to Southern California, got into dispensaries, opening them, managing them, which then eventually led me into, hydroponics and cultivation again. And, long story short, after, opening a brand of hydro store chains for about a decade, when they decided to have like a merge, I left and came over to work for Lux and Athena, and it's really how I got into cannabis.
Very cool. So obviously got in there pretty young with the consumption side, which a lot of people do. So are you from California then?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Orange County, grew up in the Inland Empire, Riverside, where I currently reside still. um Full long circle, I left for like 25 years and just moved back here a couple years ago.
That's awesome. So your experience, it seems to be a bit on dispensary side and like the consumable side with the glass blowing. How did you get into more of the growing side? Because it's a smaller niche of people that go that far down the rabbit hole.
I mean, like it was like when I started smoking, I was like realized like people blow these glass pipes. I'm like, wait, I'm gonna make my own pipes, right? And then after a little while of moving up north and meeting a bunch of my neighbors and realizing everybody who smokes up there grows their own weed. So instantly I was like, well, I'm gonna grow my own weed. Like I like the sandwiches I make better than any other sandwich. Like I'm probably gonna like the weed I grow better than any other weed out there as well. So that's how I started cultivating, doing a lot of outdoor and depths up north. I did have like a small indoor grow, and once I started growing, I realized like how much I enjoyed like just working with plants and just being out in like the farm and in the field. It was just so natural to me, that I never looked back at that point.
Very cool. So in California, would you say that like a lot of the people in the dispensary side also are hobbyist growers? Because in Canada, for example, like to get a product into one of our dispensaries here, it's a laundry list of regulations and hoops to jump through, and it's really hard to do, without some sort of commercial, background. So it's less of the hobbyist and passion growers I find up here.
I think you guys came, I mean, obviously British Columbia, you guys definitely had some cultivators that have been, cultivating for, decades as well. But it was just a lot more, I think, laxed here, as far as, the laws and things like that. Anyone could go out and spend $100 and get a medical recommendation and could grow, 6 to 12 plants in their house or in their front yard, and no one could really say anything. So, in the dispensaries, I would say back when I was doing the dispensaries, which was 15 plus years ago, it was still like pre-ICO and medical. It wasn't even recreational. So I would say like 90% of the people involved in those dispensaries back in those days cultivated. I know like every dispensary, for the most part, the reason why they got the dispensary is because they were already cultivating, you know.
That's very cool. Very different from Ontario, at least. I know our friends out west in BC might have gotten the jump on us as well, just because it's a bit more relaxed out there. So yeah, let's shift the focus to Athena. What's your experience been like working with them, and then we'll get into why they joined the GGC.
I mean, my experience with Athena has been seriously like amazing. I pinch myself every day I wake up, right? I was fortunate enough, to get like a sample of some of the products at my store. And as soon as I went, to my spot to, mix it up for the first time and feed plants like a 3EC, which I thought was really nuts, right? Like I had never fed plants anything near that high. But it's how you learn. So I took everything back to my spot and mixed everything up, and I was like, man, I just put like four things in my reservoir, the least amount of things I'd ever put in my resi. It looked super clean, and I was like, okay. I told my buddy who was working for me, I was like, hey, we might come back tomorrow and all these plants could be dead, like he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, we're gonna feed them a 3EC. They're just clones for transplanting. He's like, why are we gonna do that? I'm like, well, that's what they told me to do, bro. So I was like, that's what we're doing, bro. They told me to do it. So the next day we get over to the warehouse and I'm like cracking the door open, just like peeking in, and every single plant is just prayed out. I'm just like, oh, hell yeah, right on sick. Go to the next room, same thing. Next room, same thing. And I was just like, as soon as I saw all three rooms, I just called Brandon. I was like, bro, I don't know what you got here, but if you ever need help, like selling this stuff or turning more people onto it, like I'm your guy. Like I just put the least amount of things in my resi. My plants look happier than they've looked in 20 years. Like I don't know what you got going on, but I want to get involved, and that's literally how I got involved with Athena. I was at my store every day. I would text and call and be like, yo, I just sold every single Lux light. Or, oh, hey, bro, I just sold every bag of Athena in here. Like, send me more. And, eventually I got a call one day when I sent that text off. And he was like, are you happy where you're at? I was like, well, I mean, I'm happy, but I'm always open to, hearing what's out there. He's like, I'll give you a call tomorrow. I know you're at work. And yeah, within 30 days or a couple weeks, actually, I was already, given my 2 weeks and heading over to Lux and Athena. So definitely very blessed.
That's really cool. And yeah, our CEO, brought that up when we first started trying Athena. He was like, wow, very surprised at how high the ECs were, and just a little concerned because, a lot of, especially newer growers, they'll see a deficiency or a problem in their leaf and they'll think, hey, I need to add more. A lot of times can be lockouts in that situation too. So even starting with a three can be a little nerve wracking if you've had a lockout before.
Yeah, and I mean, what I've noticed too a lot of times, like what we would see in older nutrient regimens and stuff that we would like call lockout. Like now, usually if you see something like that with Athena, it's actually a lack of nutrients. Like you really don't see deficiencies, unless you're overwatering or not stacking your EC high enough in your medium. And, with our other like 12 or 13 bottle mixes that weren't really made to work with one another, we would always, get, into toxicity levels and not really knowing it. We'd smoke a whole room and be like, oh, we just killed our whole room. Like, I just locked them all up. Right. And with Athena, it's so balanced that you can really run such a high EC without having that risk of burning or torching a whole room. But guys, when they first see that look that tells them, oh, I'm getting lockout, they start to panic and they want to do a flush immediately. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, time out. What's the EC? What's the EC in the block, or what's your runoff? And they tell me, and I'm like, no, you're low, bro. Like you need to feed them more, or not water them as much. And within 3 or 4 days of making that change up, they're calling me back like, bro, good looking out, man. My plants look amazing now. And so it's a little learning curve, right? Because those looks that we're all used to as growers are mean a little bit different things now. When you're dealing with like a perfectly balanced nutrient program.
Very cool. I mean, that leads into one of the things I wanted to touch on, and it's what are some of the tips that you would give to somebody using Athena for the first time? You got your home grower, and I love the simplicity, especially of the pro line. But what's some of the keys for them?
I mean, the first thing, first tip or like trick or, question I really ask guys, I ask them like, what's their experience level? And then like, what type of equipment do they have, right? If they have a tent and they're going to hand mix nutrients and hand water, I will pretty much tell them like, the easiest line for you to have great results on your first time would be our blended line. It was developed around, those older irrigation techniques like hand watering, those ebb and flow systems, recirculating and stuff like that. But if they're like, yeah, bro, I've been growing for 5 years, I have, GrowLink or Roya, I have sensors in my room, I'm pretty, techie, then I'm going to be like, hey, pushing more towards the pro line because that was really designed, for larger commercial cannabis facilities where you're going to give them multiple shots a day. You're going to have to know your moisture percentage and your EC levels. And, it just takes a little bit more, experience, like field experience, and then to have the right tools in order to achieve the same results that you could with the blended line. So that's like my first thing I always tell guys. um, you know, the second thing, is that same thing we were just talking about, which is like, hey, if you think you're deficient or you're about to lock your plants out, instead of hitting the panic button and like doing a complete RO flush, let's at least see what the EC or the runoff is. And depending on that, most likely it's going to be a situation where we have to dry the plants back a little bit more, or we just feed it a higher EC, you know. And like really the third tip, it's like if they have IG, I really suggest like following our facility advisors on the team, because if you're not, you need someone, to answer a question quickly, you can always send us a DM, send us a picture, and myself or any of my other brothers on the team would be more than happy, to answer those questions and make sure the guys stay, dialed in and on the right track.
It's very interesting that you say the blended line would be your recommendation for a newer grower because it does have more components than the pro line, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it does have more components, but it's already mixed, right? And like, if you're new to this and you haven't like used a scale, you're not measuring water 100% accurately. It takes all of that sort of variables and potential issues right out of the equation. Now you're getting bottles that are filtered, they're ready, they're homogenized. All you got to do is pour out the right mLs per gallon and you're gonna be dialed. Now with the Pro line, as you know, as a user yourself, right? Like if you don't have the right amount of water to salt, your target ECs are going to be off at the end when you go to make batches and stuff like that, which can be frustrating to a new grower. He's like, I did everything you guys said to do, and it's not hitting the target. And then I ask him like 5 questions, and he's like, oh wait, I dumped the bag into the 20 gallons of water, and I'm like, oh no, it's supposed to be like water and salt combined to equal that gallon number. And they're like, oh, I get it. So there's just more moving parts, which, for a new guy, it could be a little bit more difficult.
Very cool. No, I appreciate that clarity. Uh, but yeah, interesting for me because I obviously the name Pro Line hints at it should be for the more experienced growers, but I personally like the simplicity of an A and a B for bloom and grow. Yeah,
I
so
really, I really wish like we would have named it like commercial line, instead of pro line, because
yeah,
it's like a lot of guys see that word pro and they're like, I'm pro, I want to be a pro, or I see these pros doing it and I want to do what they're doing, right? And it's like, well, some of these guys have been doing this for like 15 or 20 years, and like they probably wouldn't even consider themselves a pro. They're learning every day too, and again, it's like if you're new to this, like stacking an EC in the medium and getting a proper dry back, some of these terms, these guys are like, what are we talking about, And even for legacy guys that have been growing for 15, 20 years, it takes them, a good year or two of really like honing in their skills on dry backs and crop steering, It's
yeah.
one of the more difficult, parts of our industry right now.
Yeah, it's one thing that I mean, when I first started growing, I tried to cheat watering because to me that seemed like the most expensive input, right? So I'm like, what's the minimum amount of watering I can give my plant to get buds at the end? And then, H really pushed me to try and maximize the amount of water that I can feed my plant throughout the growth cycle. And then I looked at the numbers from my yield at the beginning to the new method, and it's like, okay, like you're getting your money back, no problem. And then another thing with the drybacks was like that was a huge change in my grow from becoming beginner to an intermediate is making sure you're feeding it early in the light cycle so it gets that dryback throughout the day.
Yep. Yeah, it's a learning curve. It even was for me. I come from, outdoor, experience, hand watering, hand mixing, all of those things to all of a sudden moving right into, full fertigation skids, where it batches for me now. All I got to do is make concentrations and, set up my system to pull X amount of mLs per gallon, and it runs itself, right? And I'm looking at computer screens now, where before I only went in and read plants, like I'd pick plants up, weigh them, do little tricks and things like that. And now I have charts and graphs that tell me anything and everything I need to know. So it's
And
been
you
a
prefer that level of insight. Like I know there's a lot of people who want to keep that craftness to growing and really grow based off feel and look rather than charts.
I mean, I'm never someone who's gonna like be steered or make my decisions based off the charts. But when I hit home runs or I crap the bed, right? That's when I'm running over to those charts and I'm sort of looking at how that happened, right? And if I've hit the home run with a certain genetic, I'm really trying to copy and paste that every time I run that genetic again, right? Um, and again, if you're not there all the time, you have employees, and all of a sudden you have a bad run, at least you can go back in the data and see how and why most likely that happened, right? They either let them dry back too far, came in hot. There's multiple situations, but that data really does allow you to go back in time and see how you got to this end result. So you have the opportunity to repeat it in the future or to correct it.
Very cool. I could talk to you about this stuff all day, actually, because I think this is one of the areas that newer growers like. It's daunting for them, and it's so important to the growth. But we'll try to keep it focused to the GGC. And I wanted to ask you, as a rep of Athena, why did you guys want to join the GGC as a partner brand? Why did you think it was a cool initiative to get behind?
I mean, the Global Grow Cup is an exclusive cultivating competition that growers of all sizes can participate and showcase their talents, And, the Athena team, we really stand behind the community, recognizing and, the dedication and passion the cultivators, bring to their craft, right? And, this event is just a unique platform for us to connect with growers from around the world and exchange insights, just like we're doing here on this little interview, sort of showcase our products, and how they can help people, and how our grow team can help achieve exceptional results. And it's like something that seemed right up our alley. It was really, really, you guys are really aligned with what we're about and what we stand for.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we have amazing partner brands in this, and it's very cool. I don't think you see it in many industries where you have leading brands that aren't necessarily competing against each other in the same space. Trying to be more collaborative as far as engaging the community rather than combative. Right? We don't have the Pepsi versus Coke feuds in the cannabis industry. It seems quite yet.
Yeah, not so much. There's a little bit of it out there, but I think there's still so much shaking up to still be done before this industry is really set in place, that, there's enough room for everybody right now, So I don't really see a ton of like that combative competition. I see a lot more people starting to actually work together in that community vibe where it's like we're all in this together, right? Like, so everyone's opening up those Rolodexes and really trying to help, their brother or their sister or their neighbor out, because they don't know when that next shoe could fall and they might need that help. So I do see a lot of guys and companies working together more than like in the recreational, sorry, not recreational, but in the medical and pre-ICO days here, at least in California.
Along those lines, like what are the other things that Athena's excited about in the cannabis space? Stuff that you maybe have seen growers doing with your products, or cool influencers out there.
I mean, we're definitely excited about the tremendous growth, and the evolution happening within the space. We're passionate about sharing our knowledge and proven procedures, to support these cultivators that are coming up, so they can achieve the best possible results. As the industry, continues to expand, we really look forward to supporting, you know, the up the upcoming legalization efforts in regions and around the world. Some of the things that we're committed to is being at the forefront of the growth by empowering growers with the tools and the insights and the support they need to really succeed in this space, and just contributing to the overall growth and sustainability of our industry is really like what we're excited about for the future. What I like seeing right now personally is like the under canopy lighting, right? And like guys really starting to focus on how they're, I mean, I hear guys using the word cooking their plants, right? Because of the lights, right? And so I like that guys are starting to look more into their environmentals and their lighting, and how to throw lighting and different PPFDs and spectrums at these plants, and to achieve new and better results. That's something I'm really excited to see that whole evolution take place right now.
Very cool. And then it's like with being in and around California, obviously California led the way with exploring this plant, getting it legalized, and the home growing space. From what we see, there's a lot of excitement as soon as recreational legalization happens, and then it kind of tapers down pretty quickly and then stabilizes after that. Have you seen maybe a trend from home growers where they're getting less passionate about it as time moves on from that legalization date, or do you still see really passionate home growers around?
I mean, I think the home growers are, I mean, all growers, right? If you're a legit real grower, you're probably one of the more passionate people out there on the planet. You know what I mean? Like I think artists, musicians, cannabis growers, athletes, I think like we're at the forefront, of people that have a lot of passion and drive. The only thing that like I think sort of hinders that passion is when the price points are where they're at now, and some of these people are really trying to do this to support themselves, or like really start a new business. It's really tough out there, so I do see a lot of people getting discouraged just based on the market value. They put 3 4 months into a crop, and they go to take it to market, and the first thing that happens, the guy opens the bag and goes, oh, it doesn't smell as good as this, or the color's not right, and so instantly they've put all this passion and love and energy into this plant, and now on the back end, because there's so much overproduction here, they get really like knocked down, and can barely afford to like stay in business, or do it again, so I don't really see a lack of like home growers having passion. I just think like it becomes a tricky and tight spot, if you don't really have a network to move things on the back end.
Yeah, totally understandable. Lots of I always say this with especially dispensaries, but it's kind of like the restaurant of the industry where everybody kind of wants one. They're very hard to differentiate yourself and stay competitive just because of the sheer competition numbers. But yeah, on that note, is there anything else you'd like to say to the GGC participants? Maybe somebody on the sidelines who didn't join this year, or just maybe something from yourself personally.
Yeah, I mean, we appreciate everybody, who is involved currently this year, and obviously, anybody, that was on the fence. Like, I mean, the only way to like get involved is to get in, right? So instead of sitting there on the sidelines and watching, hop in next year, join the party, bro. It's a great experience, and you'll end up with a bunch of brothers and sisters that are very like-minded people, in my 20 plus years of being in cannabis, that's one thing you learn right away. It's like we're not all in this, because we're super different. A lot of us got into this and love this plant for very similar reasons, and you end up realizing that you have a big circle of like-minded people out there. So yeah, if you're not involved, you should definitely start getting involved.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. JJ, you can follow Athena at athena.ag on Instagram. I'm sure you guys are on Facebook and all the other ones as well, too.
Yep, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it. We try to do our best as far as getting out there and keeping the marketing side going and putting out as much information as we possibly can.
Awesome. Yeah. So follow them, get the information there. I know I've seen them at my local hydroponics store as well. So always support your local hydro shop because those are some of the most passionate people in our industry and always a wealth of knowledge, those people as well. So I'm going to throw this back to the live. It was great sitting down with you, JJ, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Hey, my pleasure. I want to thank all of you guys. Thanks for even getting me involved. It's my pleasure. And anytime you guys, want to hop back in or do a deeper dive on any sort of, part of this space or industry, I'm more than willing to hop back in with you guys. So thanks again for the time, and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week.
Very cool. Definitely have to have you on the Friday live one of these days.
Right on. Cool.